The way money moves on chain is evolving fast, and developers are demanding payment experiences that feel as seamless as modern APIs. So, with the launch of Onchain Transaction V2, Circle Payment Network, which is known as CPN, introduces an optional new payment flow that uses an authorization framework built on Uniswap's Permit2 standard. And this is a move designed to simplify and accelerate on-chain settlement. So in this video, I'm going to show you an interactive demo that showcases the complete journey of sending 20 USDC from United States to Mexico, where they'll be receiving MXN using the Uniswap's Permit2 standard for authorization and Circle's payment settlement contract for execution. My name is Adesiji, and I'm a DevRel at Circle. Unlike traditional blockchain transactions that require native tokens for gas, manual nonce management, and raw transaction signing, this demo that I'm going to show you would illustrate the simplified blockchain processing fees abstracted feature of on-chain payment. All of this sounds really interesting, and I'm really excited to take you through it. But I want you to know that this is a paradigm shift in how cross-border payments are executed on-chain. With that out of the way, let's get started. So this is the demo that I mentioned, right? And I built this user interface to show you the steps of carrying out a cross-border transaction with CPN. All of the details that you need to be able to understand all the technical aspects of this can be found in our developer docs. So do check out the link in the description below. We're going to start the first step where we're going to create a code. We're going to start by calling the Circle CPN API to generate a payment code. Now, this payment code represents a fixed rate exchange offer for converting 20 USDC to Mexican pesos, MXN. And all of this happens through the SEPI payment rail, which is the Mexico's interbank electronic payment system. It's also important that you know that the code is created with the transaction version V2 that we've just launched, which triggers the Permit2 based flow rather than the legacy V1 approach. In this video, I'm also going to compare the legacy V1 approach with the new V2 approach so you can see the difference and what CPN now offers to make on-chain payment seamless. Also, the code includes a source amount, which I'll be showing you in the log, the destination amount, which is approximately 346. When I start the demo, you'll be able to see it, and the blockchain transaction fees, which is denominated entirely in USDC, and that's the new offer that CPN also does offer, where you don't have to manage native token. And finally, expiration window, which is about 30 seconds. And that's the reason why I'm still talking through that before I actually start the demo, because once I start the demo and I create a code, I've got 30 seconds to move to the next step. So I've got to move really quickly. And you can see on my screen, you see the code status, it has been created. You see that it's active, 20 USDC, and they'll be receiving this specified amount in MXN. I have 30 seconds, so I've got to move to the next step, which is where I'll create payment. And I'll do that now, and then we'll continue to talk about the next step. So you can see the next step, create a payment. You see the payment status. The code is accepted, and it's where we create a payment object by submitting the code ID along with some of the following data. So let's check the code response so you see it. So like I said, we've got the amount in 20 USDC, we've got the destination country, we've got the blockchain, and we also have some encrypted data like the beneficiary account, which is the recipient's banking details in Mexico. We have the travel route data, which is the compliance information required for cross-border transfer. We have the customer reference ID for transaction tracking. We have the sender's wallet address, which is the originating financial institution known as OFI's wallet address, and that will be acting on behalf of the end user. You can take a look at the log. The settlement is max 5 minutes. We've got the exchange rate. We have some other important information as well. So when you do run this demo, you can see as well. So the next step is to create a transaction. But before I create the transaction, it's important that you know that this step, creating a payment step, the payment process enters a crypto funding pending status, indicating that the blockchain settlement has not yet occurred. And this is where Permit2 authorization layer becomes really crucial. And the reason for that is in the third step, which is where we're creating the transaction, the CPN V2's architecture really comes into play. So instead of constructing a raw Ethereum transaction with gas limit, nonces, and chain ID and all of this data, the API returns an EIP712 typed data payload. And this type data payload is the same as the standard used by Uniswap, another modern decentralized application for human readable signatures. So once I click create transaction, we are going to move to the next step, which is where we're going to be signing this transaction. You can also see in the logs, you see a transaction object, which I'll walk through shortly. So let's create the transaction, and you see that the status is now created. Transaction has been created. So I'm just going to collapse this. And take a look at the log. In the transaction response, you see that the status is created. We've got the payment ID, we've got the blockchain, we've got all of this important information. But take a look at the message, right? The message type, the payment settlement contract is the message type. This is the message to be signed. And once we sign it, we'll be able to move to the next step to submit the transaction. And this is the verification layer, right? So we have the verifying contract, we've got the amount, we've got all the nonces, we've got all of this. But the beauty of this is that CPN handles everything for you. So you also have the primary type, which is the function that we're interacting with, the permit witness transfer form. You have all of this EIP 712 typed data. And in this next step is when you are going to sign the transaction. So I'm going to sign the transaction, and then I'll compare V1 and V2 so you understand the added value for V2. But before that, it's important that you know that this message that we signed is cryptographically structured to authorize the payment settlement contract as the spender. It's important that you know that to sign the transaction, we're using the developer controlled wallet API to sign the EIP 712 typed data. And this is different from the V1 approach. So now is the time to compare V1 and V2. So in the V1 approach, the OFI is required to sign both a typed data and a raw EVM transaction, which in a later step, the OFI also needs to manage the nonce manually, all of which we've improved in version 2. Because in version 2, the OFI signs structured human readable typed data, which I've shown you, and CPN handles the nonce management. Also, the blockchain processing fees are abstracted as it has been calculated and converted from the native token amount to USDC amount when we created the code in the previous step. And finally, no broadcasting is needed as CPN handles all of that for us. So before I move to the next step where we're going to submit the transaction, I just want to be clear that the signature is a cryptographic proof that the OFI's wallet authorizes the payment settlement contract to execute this specific payment for this exact amount that we've created, 20 USDC to MXN in this amount shown in my demo. I'll submit the transaction, right? But the reason why I've not submitted the transaction is once I submit the transaction, we need to pull the API and we need to see how the API, the transaction moves from the broadcasted status to the complete status where the USDC would have settled on chain. Before I submit the transaction, let me tell you all that is happening in this step. We've signed the message, right? But the signed message is submitted back to CPN, and this triggers the on-chain settlement flow. And the on-chain settlement flow follows 4 particular steps. CPN receives the signature and the payment intent. The payment settlement contract is invoked, and that does a lot of things, including verifying the signature against the typed data. It checks that the payment is not expired. It validates the nonce to prevent replay attacks, and also calls the permit witness transfer from function. The third step is the Permit2 standard, which is the Uniswap deployed contract. It verifies that the OFI's wallet has granted it a master approval. It validates the sub-approval signature, pulls 20 USDC from the OFI's wallet address, and finally transfers the USDC to the payment settlement contract. And in the fourth step, the payment settlement contract distributes the funds and it pays the destination amount to the beneficiary, take away the blockchain processing fees in USDC as well. With that out of the way, I'm just going to go ahead and submit the transaction. So you can see that the transaction status is in pending, right? And we've got the amount, we've got the ID. Now, the next thing I need to do is I need to check and wait for completion to start pulling the API. So you can see that the transaction status is now broadcasted. Now we're pulling the API to regularly check every 2 seconds for the completed status. And once we do have the completed status, it means that the transaction is done, right? And you can check the transaction hash and you can see all the details in a block explorer. So we're pulling that, we're constantly checking, and you can see all of that in the response logs I've got right here. You can see that the status is broadcasted. We've just put the next one. It's still broadcasted. We've just gotten the next one. It's still broadcasted, but I'll move to the UI so that we can really see all that is happening right here. Because at the point where we have the completed status, the USDC has been settled on chain and the transaction is done. And at this point, the payment settlement contract has executed everything successfully. The CPN's payout partner can begin the off-ramp process to convert USDC to MXN via the SEPI route, and the recipient in Mexico will receive Mexican pesos in their bank account. So awesome. We have the transaction status to be completed. I have this nice demo complete toast message, toast notification showing that everything is done. We've got the transaction ID, we have the status completed, we have the amount to be 20, and we have the payment ID and the blockchain to be Ethereum Sepolia testnet. So you can also check in my API logs. I'm just going to scroll down and you can see I'm just going to scroll down a little bit down and we can scroll up. Yes, status completed. You can see the full response. Status is completed. The USDC is settled on chain. So this is the power of the new transaction V2 that we've just launched for CPN. And you can see how CPN handles everything on behalf of the OFI. And it's really interesting. So if you want to start building, check out the link in the description to register and get in contact with us. My name is Blessing. Really been awesome walking you through this demo.